people love these movies. People rewatch American Pie, Wedding Crashers, Superbad. Like, they love them. They still quote them today. You still see people wearing McLovin shirts. Welcome to episode number 23 of the Comedy and Film Artist Podcast. As you can see today, things look a little bit different. I am my own guest today. This is the first time I've done this. We had to shuffle around a few interviews, but we'll be back with a guest next week. We've got some exciting guests coming up. We have guests who worked on productions including the Hangover series, American Pie. There's Something About Mary, just to name a few. We've had some really fun guests throughout the time. We've had my cast and crew from Hometown Summer. Of course, we had Larry Joe Campbell, who's in Wedding Crashers and Hall Pass. And According to Jim, to name a few. Adam William Ward was a really fun guest that I just had on last week. Really happy with how this podcast is coming along. And yes, just jumping into things. The first question that I ask all my guests is almost always like, what got you into the industry? What got you into comedy or whatever? And just for me, it was really just comedy movies are what got me through COVID. And I wasn't allowed to watch R-rated comedy movies growing up. I wasn't allowed to watch R-rated movies in general growing up. And so COVID hit, I was 21, and as you know, because you're a human, it sucked. Just so isolating and nothing to do. And that was like the one thing that I really looked forward to every week. Every day rather, was I had that new R-rated comedy to watch, So the ones that really stuck out that really had an impact on me were Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Dazed and Confused, and American Pie, of course. Euro Trip. Wedding Crashers was the biggest one. That was the one that I watched, and it's I remember I watched it and I was still thinking about it when I woke up the next day. And even into the day and the following day, I was still thinking about that movie. It's that's when you really know that you saw a truly iconic film. And I really just fell in love with these movies. And I noticed that they just stopped making them. I started going to the movie theaters all the time in 2017. Ever since 2017, with the exception of COVID, because they were closed, of course, I've probably averaged going to the movie theater 1.5 to 2 times a week as a mean. And they just never release good comedies anymore. And, I was fortunate enough that I did get to see Blockers in theaters. Classic. You got to see it if you haven't seen it. And Good Boys was a good one, and Game Night. And this was before I started going, but I did see Ted 2 in theaters, and holy shit, I think that's the single funniest movie I've ever seen, in terms of laugh count. Altogether, they just have not been releasing comedy movies. Well, they have been, but I don't want to shit on other people's movies, but I think you know what I mean. Really just this desire to bring these movies back. And I remember the thought came to mind that I wanted to accumulate $100,000. I have no idea where that number came from or whatever. I just had this idea in my head. I think that I was if I just get $100,000, that should be enough to pay someone out there to make a comedy movie that I'll enjoy. And that was in my brain, going forward for that next month. I was just thinking, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to work towards. This is what, this is what a good portion of my savings is going to go to. This is what we're saving up for. And I think it was when I watched Clerks that it became more real to me that I could just do this myself. You didn't have to throw out the risk of not enjoying the movie, or maybe it was a fine movie, but I didn't connect with the humor or whatever. And then if it just bombs and I get nothing back, and it's I can deal with that if I make the movie, but if someone else makes it for me and all this happens, ugh. So, yeah, that really sparked that. And I just recorded a video that goes more in depth on this about how I spent $60,000 making comedy movies, because there's two. There's Rosetta Stone was my first one, and then Hometown Summer, which of course is in post-production currently. Rosetta Stone follows the story of a stoner who gets his autistic classmate high in exchange for homework help, and then realizes he's in for more than he bargained for when his classmate makes advances at friendship. And then Hometown Summer is the one in post-production, which is about three childhood best friends whose plan to attend the same college is thrown for a whirl in a summer filled with drugs, sex, and bad business decisions. I go really in depth in this video that'll be out in 2-ish weeks about the whole process and everything of what that entailed and why I did what I did. But that's the idea of why I am into making the comedy movies that I make. You know, really very much the 2000 style. Judd Apatow, Todd Phillips, Seth MacFarlane. I'd say like those three guys in terms of filmmakers. And then Dave Chappelle and George Carlin as stand-up comedians, but like in terms of specifically filmmakers, Judd Apatow and Todd Phillips, and of course Seth MacFarlane. Seth MacFarlane definitely was like the introduction to my sense of humor. You know, watching Family Guy before I was even old enough. You know, it's so funny. Like I wasn't allowed to watch R-rated movies growing up, and there was like this like time period in my life between like the ages of like 8 and 12 where like I was just allowed to watch Family Guy, and I don't know why. I think it was because like I was allowed to watch PG-13 movies, and it was like, okay, so we see TV-14, it's like this is fine. But it's like funny, like you like rewatch Family Guy and it's like, yeah, like this is like this would be like a hard R movie in terms of American standards, and it's so funny. But then I got it taken away, and so then I had to I still watched it, but I had to like wait for like my parents to go to bed, or like they would often fall asleep on the couch, and I would just watch it in the other room, and it was hilarious. And I would say like, I don't know, like 70% of the jokes completely went over my head, either because like I didn't understand sex to that point, because of course the show's very raunchy and very sexually focused, or I just like didn't understand the pop culture. Like I remember I rewatched the first 9 seasons, or all the seasons that Seth MacFarlane was in the writer's room as an adult a year or two ago, and I remember like watching it. Like there were like things about like the Clinton administration or the Bush administration, just those kinds of things that you like obviously like just completely went over my head as like a 10-year-old. But then it's like, oh, I know who these like congressmen are or whatnot, or I know this part of these presidencies, and it's like, oh, okay, like that's like even funnier. Just like one like really small scene that like really sticks out is I remember you know, and it's not going to be as funny when I say it, but like something that just the genius of Seth MacFarlane when there's a scene in Bill Clinton's limousine gets a flat tire, and the Secret Service comes to his door, and they say, the president's outside. Do you have a jack? He blew a tire. And Peter goes, damn, that guy really is horny. It's like, that's just such a brilliant line of dialogue, but like as a 10-year-old or whatever, like I probably didn't even know what a blowjob was, and 2, I had no idea like everything with Clinton and whatnot. Yeah, that's just something that comes to mind. But like those kinds of guys, like those are definitely like my biggest inspirations, and like that style of comedy is what I hope to bring back to life, and the kind of feelings I hope you feel when you watch my movies. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, things have not been great with the comedy movie genre. I know I tease that, but like, yeah, I mean, I'd be curious if you're listening to this and like you've seen some good comedies over the past few years. Like if you could just let me know in the comments. Like I'm always looking to see some I love under the radar comedies, or maybe there was one that I skipped out on. You know, I actually never watched American Fiction because I'm so like disillusioned with the comedy movie genre as it is now. And I watched a trailer for that and I laughed out loud multiple times, and I think I missed an opportunity at seeing a solid comedy in theaters. So I'm definitely gonna have to watch that one. I really liked Anora. I thought Anora was a really good movie. I don't think it was necessarily like funny the same way that like a movie like Wedding Crashers or Old School or American Pie or you name it, the Change Up or whatever. I know that's kind of a random one. I don't think it was like funny like that, but I did laugh a few times, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie, and I thought it was very, they definitely pushed some boundaries that I was surprised to see. But yeah, no, I would love to hear in the comments below if you think there are any that I've missed out on. But yeah, it's just tough because like they haven't, Todd Phillips temporarily stepped out of comedy movies. He actually has teased that he plans on making a comedy movie at some point in the future. So that's really exciting. And, they haven't been giving Judd Apatow many opportunities. I think he's got a lot he has written. I mean, he's at least said as much in his masterclass and in other interviews. Like, I really hope they give him the opportunity to make another movie because, like, we're really missing out on, like, the Todd Phillips, Judd Apatow. And, I mean, Seth MacFarlane, his recent TED show was amazing. I'm so excited for season 2. But, like, just giving those guys the opportunity to release another comedy, I think that's, like, the issue is Hollywood just isn't giving really funny people the opportunity to make these movies. And that's why we've really been struggling. And like, of course, I mean, there's all the shit with political correctness and whatnot. And I've gone down that rabbit hole a million times. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time going through that now. I mean, I talked about that in depth with Adam William Ward, with Brendan Takish. I even made a YouTube video about why political correctness is killing comedy. But, yeah, we have all of these issues, and like they also aren't giving like the funniest actors the opportunity. Like, when is the last time you saw a comedy starring Vince Vaughn or Paul Rudd or Sean William Scott? Like, I don't know why Hollywood is trying to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like, these people are proven to be hilarious, and they put out great work, and they get good reviews, and they very rarely bomb at the box office. Like, I don't know why they're saying, oh, we need to have someone who's unproven with unproven actors. Not like totally, like American Pie is full of unproven actors and rookie writer, rookie directors. Like, and it worked out, and that's amazing. That's awesome. I love when that works out, and Eurotrip is very similar. But what's wrong with giving like the proven veterans who have had the success both financially and with the audiences? Like, why can't those be the predominant comedies that are being made? And also giving other people their opportunities as well, of course. But I don't know why we can't have like a Vince Vaughn comedy every year, why we can't have a Paul Rudd comedy every year, why we can't have a Sean William Scott comedy every year. And the list goes on. We've really been missing that. But there's definitely those are definitely the ingredients to making a great comedy movie. I've studied so many screenplays and so many comedy movies as a comedy movie filmmaker myself, and that's above all else, you need a strong comedic lead. You just do. Like, there are some really great comedies on page that turn out to be great comedies on screen because of a strong comedic lead. And then there's also great comedies that were great on the page, and then they were just okay on screen because the actors didn't meet the same level. But then there are comedies that are like okay screenplays, but then they end up being great movies because the comedic leads, the comedic chemistry on screen is just so funny. And I mean, yeah, like that is definitely the formula to making a great comedy movie. Okay, my camera died, so there's probably a cut. I'm probably like in a slightly different position. I record these podcasts completely unedited, so that's like the reason why there's a cut there. But yeah, and I really like the unedited, just raw podcast feel. But that is why there was a cut. My camera died, and I hope my sound recorder doesn't die. We might have another cut. But yeah, I mean, just going off of what I was just talking about with respect to the need to really give like the Todd Phillips, the Judd Apatow, the Seth MacFarlane, the Vince Vaughn, the Paul Rudd, the Sean William Scott, to give all of those super talented writer, director, actors the opportunity to shine on the big screen regularly again. Like, that's definitely what we need in comedy. And this is going to be such a short podcast episode. These are usually about an hour. I feel like this one's going to be like 25 to 30 minutes, but I digress. But this is getting into the questions I ask all my guests at the end with respect to what gives you optimism. So this is not all doom and gloom. I hope I haven't just been making you feel horrible if you like comedy movies, because I mean, there definitely is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we've seen this before. I mean, for example, like raunchy teen comedies went missing into the, like, in the 80s had Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Porky's, and I feel like there's one other one that I'm forgetting. And then, like, they just went missing for, like, I don't know how long it was, like 15 years or whatever. And then we got American Pie in 1999. And then, like, there were raunchy comedies galore. Then we had Road Trip, Euro Trip, Van Wilder. Those were out of order. It went Road Trip, Van Wilder, Euro Trip, but like they were everywhere, and they had all the direct-to-DVD movies. They had the American Pie Presents. Like, raunchy teen comedies were everywhere after '99. Like, I don't know when it stopped. It went on for like a whole decade though. And like that just connects to what I'm talking about now. Like, comedy movies, like good comedy movies, have largely been dead for about a decade now. You get some good ones here and there. Like we got, like I said, Blockers. I truly, like, that was in my top 10 teen comedies of all time list. I really love that movie, and it was just hilarious. John Cena. That's another guy who I know he has been getting comedy movies, but they've been going straight to streaming, and I hate that. But he's one of the, I really think he's one of the better comedic actors as well. But we got that, and you know, Game Night and Good Boys were good movies. Like we get this here and there, but as a whole, the genre's just been dead. I mean, I don't want to go too far into this because I don't want to start calling out movies by name. I really don't. I don't. It's not something I love doing as a filmmaker myself, especially if it's someone's passion project and like they really poured their heart and soul into it. Like that, I don't want to be that fucking asshole. Especially when a lot of these people are going to be way more talented than me in so many other ways. I mean, it's not really my place to be like start listing off titles and saying why I didn't think a movie was funny or whatever. But as a whole, the comedy movie genre has been dead. But going off what I was saying about American Pie, that I really think we're going to see something like that again. And the reasons, like a few big reasons why are, well, for starters, they gave Seth MacFarlane the Ted, and they gave him Ted season 2, and that's been blowing up. It's been doing it clearly went well if they gave him another season a year later. But the two bigger ones that come to mind are the Wayans brothers, the original makers of the two Scary Movies. Very much guys that don't care whatsoever about boundaries, and you know, like if it's funny, it's making it. It's making the final cut. They got Scary Movie 6 greenlit. That's going to be released next year. So that's very much, no doubt in my mind, going to be very much a 2000 style comedy that we will see on the big screen next summer. So they're at least giving it a shot. And then there is a non-existing IP non-sequel titled Animal Friends that is starring Ryan Reynolds and Vince Vaughn that is set to release this fall. And, you know, Vince Vaughn's a big ad-libber, and, you know, that's just his thing. Like, he's a heavy improver. So it's like, I don't see any way possible that this movie isn't a throwback to the 2000s in one way or another, but probably many ways, because like Vince Vaughn's just Vince Vaughn. Like he's his own guy, and he's going to be Vince Vaughn in this movie. There's no way he would sign on to do a movie where he's going to be restricted and told you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't improv either. So, and this is getting a theatrical release, which is so exciting for me. I don't see how that isn't very much a 2000 style comedy. And then a third one that comes to mind as well is Todd Phillips has teased that his next movie will be a comedy movie. But even if we throw that out, even if we just say, okay, we have Animal Friends and we have Scary Movie 6, I don't see why these movies won't do well. Audiences love Ryan Reynolds. I mean, are you kidding me? Deadpool, those 3 movies. Vince Vaughn's done really well at the box office. I think he's had a couple of not amazing financial successes at the box office, but like he's done well for himself. I mean, there was, of course, Old School, Dodgeball, Wedding Crashers. Like these movies all killed it at the box office. And, you know, he's been super friendly to the box office. And those 2 guys together, I don't see how this movie, no way in hell it bombs. I don't see how it could even flop. And I would be surprised if it was even just a small financial success. Like, I think this movie's going to do really well. And Hollywood jumps on trends like there's no tomorrow. I mean, every movie of like the 2010s and into the early 2020s was a fucking superhero movie. And like, they just don't let it go. You know, you say Animal Friends and Scary Movie, let's say they both have a budget of $30 million. I don't know. It could be anywhere from like 10 to 50. And let's just say 30. And say these movies do 200 million at the domestic box office. Like, that's one hell of a signal that people are starved for these movies. And especially so with Animal Friends being non-existing IP, non-sequel, like, I could see like Scary Movie that'd be like, oh, well, it's this is an existing IP and this is a sequel. Like, of course it did well, but like they can't play that game if Animal Friends does well. And yeah, I mean, it knocks it out of the park. Like, you could get an Animal Friends 2, or you could say like, oh, we got to start working with Vince Vaughn again. Like, that is really what gives me optimism. And like that might be like these 2 movies might be the movies that give like the green light to finally getting American Pie 5 with the original cast. Like, audiences are clearly starved. There's clearly superhero fatigue. There's clearly existing IP fatigue, and people just want funny stuff. Like, the system was not broken. Like, that is such bullshit to say that. Comedies are only for streaming. Like, what? Like, comedy movies are, I would argue, the number 1 genre of movie that benefits from a theatrical release and getting into that communal setting where everyone is laughing together. Comedy movie is so much funnier if there are 100 other people all together, all laughing together. And I think Hollywood is going to be put on notice with some of these movies. Like, once they start getting some success, they're going to realize that they were full of shit and that we shouldn't be directing these to streaming, and that we shouldn't be not casting Vince Vaughn and Sean William Scott and Paul Rudd. I'm starting to repeat myself. But yeah, no, I'm very, very optimistic. Like, I don't know when it started. We'll say like 2016 or whatever to 2024 will be known as a very dark age for comedy movie, but they are coming back. Like, I am super sure of that. And I don't see any other way. Like, people love these movies. You know, people rewatch American Pie, Wedding Crashers, Superbad. Like, they love them. They still quote them today. You still see people wearing McLovin shirts. And it's not like people all of a sudden just hated these movies. People love these movies, and if people are discovering for them for the first time and they love them, like, there is no reason, no way in hell that people wouldn't watch a movie in that vein that is released on the big screen today and like think like, oh, this sucks, or I'm not going to go see this. I really think it's going to be that chain reaction, like the one we saw with American Pie. Like, I really think the days of the comedy movie genre being dead are numbered. And like, by the time, if you watch this video by the end of the year in 2026, like we might already be seeing more and more comedy movies. So yeah, that's really what gives me optimism for the future of the industry, specifically with the comedy movie industry. Like, I think we are in store for a truly special comedy movie renaissance, exactly similar to the one we saw in the 2000s. And okay, good. My battery still hasn't died. And then wrapping it up with my top 5 comedy movies of all time. Okay, so let's go. Number 1 is for sure Wedding Crashers. I know you can usually see it in these podcast interviews, but I'm recording on my camera, not my webcam. Wedding Crashers is my favorite movie of all time. That movie has had the biggest influence on my film career. And, you know, Vince Vaughn is just so funny. I mean, he's by far my favorite actor of all time, and he just like, yeah, he makes that movie, and of course Owen Wilson's amazing. Rachel McAdams, Christopher Walken, Jane Seymour. Oh my God. The scene when she shows Owen Wilson her tits, and tells him to call her kitty cat. That's just so funny. Bradley Cooper was amazing. I mean, every part of that movie is just so amazing. And yeah, no, that is unequivocally my number one. Just the perfect movie. Number 2 would be Superbad. Just another amazing movie. My favorite teen comedy of all time. Probably my second favorite movie of all time as well. I mean, it's competing with The Dark Knight, probably for that number 2 spot on my all genres list, but just phenomenal. Just such a great movie. Just such great writing, such good acting, such good directing. Everything just really came together on that movie, and yeah, I mean, so special. And to think that was Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who plays McLovin's first movie role ever. Holy shit. And, he was only 17 when that movie was made, and his mom had to be on set for every single scene he filmed. Number 3, I know I'm going to forget one. And this is so funny because I have people on the podcast, and they always say, like, oh, I'm going to forget one, or I wish I planned this one out more. I totally have a top 5, and I feel like when I stop recording, I'm going to be like, oh, I completely left one of them out. But I think number 3 would be Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Wow, there's some jackass blaring their horn right now. I hope that's not fucking with the audio. But yeah, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, just the perfect slice of life movie. Just another... Shot in 1982, so it's celebrating its 43rd birthday this year, and it still holds up today. And just such an amazing movie, filled with so many universal human experiences. Just so funny as well. It definitely had a huge impact on me, on my life, and on my journey as a comedy filmmaker. Number 4, I would say, is probably Eurotrip. I feel like I'm forgetting one, but Eurotrip, I rewatched this movie over the summer. Just so funny. This was also Scott McElwez's first movie role ever as well. So, I mean, yeah, we've seen some really, oh, you know what? I know what I'm forgetting. I'll put it at number 5, but it's actually probably number 4. It's definitely number 4, but, yeah, this movie is just hilarious. And I read the screenplay for this movie, and it like matches the screen. The page matches the screen almost word for word in almost every scene. And it like the writers on this, like, definitely A+ all around. Yeah, just such a funny movie. I mean, it doesn't have the depth that the other movies on this list have, but like from a pure entertainment perspective, like if you have a sense of humor, like I don't know, like some people out there, maybe some of the people that are greenlight some of these comedy movies, they might have their arms crossed the whole time and be rolling their eyes, but no, you got a sense of humor, you are going to be laughing your ass off at Eurotrip. Number 5, which is actually number 4, is American Pie. Just such great gratitude to this movie for everything it did for the industry and bringing us raunchy comedies, raunchy teen comedies, really just sparking that. I know it was released in 1999, but it really sparked that special 2000s comedy renaissance. Will forever be super appreciative of this movie, and this will probably be the movie that I make the most YouTube videos about because it is just so special, and I seriously cannot wait to email one of the assistant, or not email, I already emailed her, to have on one of the assistant directors of this movie as a guest. That I'm so excited to talk to her and hear everything she has to say about her experience with the movie, because this movie is just so special. I'm just everything about it. And as a trend, this was actually also Sean William Scott's first movie ever. Not his first comedy, his first movie. He was working at Home Depot, booking random commercials, and he got the role of Steve Stifler. And, he only got paid $8,000 to make the movie, which I don't have the budget in front of me. I want to say it was like $10 million. It was definitely in that range. So like for a budget of that size, it's not a ton of money. And yeah, but I mean, of course it definitely, he made tens of millions of dollars, maybe even 100 million plus in the long run. I mean, with starring in Dude, Where's My Car, Dukes of Hazzard, Role Models, the list goes on and on. He really made a name for himself, of course, with the 3 sequels to American Pie as well. And then the honorable mention, would definitely be This Is 40 and probably also The Hangover. I rewatched The Hangover less than a week ago, and it was just... I always really liked that movie, but I don't know. This was like the 4th time I watched it, and it was just even funnier and just a better all-around movie than I remembered. So I got to throw a bone to Judd Apatow with This Is 40 and Todd Phillips with The Hangover. But yeah, no, to everyone who made it to the end of this video, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you very much, and we'll be back with a guest next week.